Now that we have the new and improved iPad 11, how does it compare to the Xiaomi Pad 7? Well, let's talk about it. The price for the iPad 11 and the Xiaomi Pad 7 are pretty similar at just over $300, which I think is pretty good considering what you get, but I'll leave a link down below with current pricing and more information. They finally upgraded the storage for the iPad from 64 gigabytes to 128. The Xiaomi Pad 7 also starts with 128 gigabytes as well. One advantage for the new iPad is you can go up to 512 gigabytes of storage versus 256 for the Xiaomi Pad. You also get 6 gigabytes of RAM in the new iPad versus 8 or 12 gigabytes for the Xiaomi Pad 7. The Xiaomi Pad 7 does weigh a little bit more at 500 grams versus 477 for the iPad 11. Both of these actually have pretty nice build quality and feel a little more premium than what you would expect for the price. The screen sizes are pretty similar. They both have an IPS LCD display at 11 inches for the new iPad, since they're rounding up now, at 1640 by 2360 resolution versus 11.2 inches on the Xiaomi Pad 7 at 2136 by 3200 resolution. The iPad is 60 Hz refresh rate versus 144 for the Xiaomi Pad. When you put these next to each other, they actually both look pretty good in my opinion. The Xiaomi Pad does look a little bit brighter with slightly better viewing angles. One advantage for the iPad is you have a fingerprint scanner on the power button or Touch ID, or if for some reason you don't get that option on the Xiaomi Pad, I know for me personally, I would like to see it right on the front of the screen, similar to how Samsung does with their Galaxy tablets. One other small difference, because of the large camera bump on the back of the Xiaomi Pad, it actually rocks back and forth quite a bit compared to the iPad. The battery life between these two are still pretty close at about 6 hours for the Xiaomi Pad 7 versus 5.5 for the iPad. Keep in mind this testing is done at 100% screen brightness, and there's a lot of variables when it comes to battery life, but I think they're close enough that it's not a big advantage with one over the other. You also get up to 45 watt fast charging with the Xiaomi Pad versus only 20 watts with the new iPad. I think when it comes to the software, it's going to be mostly personal preference. You'll notice there's some things that look fairly similar, like up in the control center, where you can control things like volume, so you don't have to use the buttons, which even Samsung is starting to do now with One UI 7. They both have a dock at the bottom. They both have widgets that you can add. There's actually quite a few things that are somewhat similar. It may also depend on which apps you need to use, but I like the software on both. Nice thing is both of these tablets have video out, so if you want to use an HDMI adapter to view these on a larger TV, external monitor, or projector. You've also got pen support as well with the USB-C or first gen Apple Pencil for the iPad. You also have the Focus Pen for the Xiaomi Pad 7. So both are good options for taking notes, drawing, or just moving around the software. One advantage with iPads is you can airdrop files to a Mac or other Apple devices pretty easily, where Android also has Quick Share if you have a Windows PC, although it doesn't work with a Mac unfortunately. One advantage with the iPad is usually you get around 5 years of software updates or more sometimes versus only 2 years software updates, 3 years security updates for the Xiaomi Pad 7. With the new iPad 11, you've got the A16 chip versus Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3 processor in the Xiaomi Pad. Performance-wise, the iPad 11 is slightly better in single and multi-core scores, but in the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test, the Xiaomi Pad is a tad better at just over 3,000. So you can't really go wrong with either one when it comes to performance. These are probably two of the best when it comes to performance in this price range. Now with the Xiaomi Pad, you've got 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM versus only 6 for the iPad. I think that could come in handy down the road after more updates or multitasking, but I think both of these are good options for playing games like PUBG Mobile or Asphalt Legends Unite and most other games in the App Store. So again, it's probably close enough between these two where there's not a big advantage to go with one over the other. As far as speakers go, they haven't really changed much from the previous versions. From what I can tell, you've got 2 on each side for the Xiaomi Pad versus only 1 on each side for the iPad, even though it looks like 2. I probably prefer the Xiaomi Pad a little bit more, but both of these sound pretty good in my opinion. Here's a quick sample of each to see if you can hear a difference. But I know you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray. The cameras appear to be pretty similar compared to the previous models, where the iPad has a 12 megapixel wide angle lens on the back, 12 megapixel ultra wide. The Xiaomi Pad 7 has a 13 megapixel on the back, 8 megapixel on the front. You can also shoot up to 4K resolution for video recording on both of these as well. Typically, cameras on tablets are not that great in my experience when compared to cell phones, but these two are actually pretty good for tablets. I think both of these would be a good option for Zoom meetings or other video conference calls, but here's a quick sample of each just so you can see how they compare. As you can see, this is probably still one of the closest comparisons between two tablets. Probably so close that it may come down to personal preference. If you like the software better on one over the other, or if you want longer software updates. But to me, I feel like these two are some of the best options at this price, especially after they've been updated from the previous versions. If you like tablets, I've got a lot more comparisons I'm working on, not to mention a lot more stuff as well. So keep an eye out for those upcoming videos. So if you've made it this far into the video, you may want to say thanks by subscribing, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if this video was helpful. This is Brian from Fishbee Productions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.